John and I were around the outdoor pool. Matthew was within the building on the 4th floor doing some gaming, good Wi-Fi. Initially I thought it was firecrackers. Somebody said they'd had firecrackers on the beach for somebody's birthday the day before. But it wasn't until I looked at John I could see his face change, and he said move, move, and obviously being X2 para he recognised it was gunshots. You just need, you know, to move and try and find somewhere safe to go. Unfortunately there was nobody giving any direction, and the main part was to head towards the inside of the hotel. Further bullets were being fired, they were getting closer, and a grenade went off, which unfortunately pushed us forward, and we had to just follow the pathway which then led us out to the front of the hotel. I thought John was with me, and the gunman went by the side of me, and I said to John, Johnny's there, he's got a gun, and then the next thing, the gunman had gone by me, I turned round and John was on the floor.
Danny, your parents-in-law Denis and Elaine were on holiday at the hotel. When did you first hear what had happened?
I was at work and just saw a news ticker coming across, and I thought that's familiar, but surely it can't be. And it must have been around about 12:30 when I first, about 12, half 12 when I first found out, and just kept an eye on it really, trying to work out. The news reports were coming through quite vague, showing which hotel it was. Pretty much scampered back to pick Lindsay up straight from work, made a phone call to her, and Lindsay in the meantime had a phone call as well from a family member, and it was pretty much then that we realised something was going on and they hadn't made contact. So we just for hours and hours that afternoon just tried to make any sort of contact we could, and of course the phones were just ringing out, any mobile was ringing out. Lindsay at that point, she maybe daughter instinct, she just knew that they would have done everything possible to make contact.
Cheryl, at the hotel, how did you join up with Matthew again? Because of course he'd been playing, like you say, computer games in a different room.
It wasn't for many hours later, after I knew John had been killed, my first thoughts were to Matthew. So I ran back into the hotel. I wasn't really bothered about whether there were any gunmen in there, I just needed to find him. I wanted to keep him safe. I suppose it's a natural mother's instinct. Several hours later that I did find him. He had been taken into a room with some other hotel guests, and it was some other people that we'd made friends with on the holiday. Had been able to contact Matt on his mobile phone. That's when I had to tell him what had happened to his dad.
When you're in the middle of this, it must be impossible to gauge how people are reacting, how other people are reacting when you're trying to focus on looking after yourself and the people you love. But the coroner has described the reaction of the authorities in Tunisia to this. At best it was shambolic, and at worst it was cowardly. Did it seem that way to you?
Well, to be quite frank, for hours I didn't see any police, didn't see any National Guard. The only time that I saw them and heard helicopters was after the event, and we were all, those of us who were still in the hotel, were ushered into the dining room, which was a glass-fronted area, which wasn't necessarily a very safe place to be, especially if they were still sweeping the hotel, the National Guard was still sweeping the hotel.
And we've heard during the inquests the bravery of other tourists. Alan Pembroke, for example, springs to mind when he ran back towards where the shooting was going on to help the wounded, whereas the authorities, Danny, didn't seem to want to go anywhere near it. Can you empathise with their position at all?
I do believe that if you're given a weapon and you're trained to use a weapon, you should be willing and ready for action, especially the tourist police. Whether it's something on the training, whether it's something for them to look, for the Tunisians to look for in the future. You know, if you've got a rifle and you're making that rifle ready to use, you should be prepared to go and take somebody down. Whether it's a pistol, which a pistol will still disarm somebody, kill somebody, and yeah, you know, I think they were certainly slow to react, as the coroner has said himself, as the evidence what's been put in front of the coroner. Yeah, I do think that people didn't do their duties on that day to how they should have done it.
Look, do you know how aware your parents-in-law, and how aware were you, Cheryl, as well, and your family, of the possible dangers in Tunisia at the time? Because of course there'd been the Bardo Museum attack just the year before. We heard during the inquest that people had asked the travel agents about that. How much did you know about potential dangers of Tunisia?
I wasn't provided with any information, either written, verbal, through either letter, email, or during the booking process.
Did you expect the company to provide that for you?
I did, and that's what I've said to the coroner in court, in evidence, that a big professional company is responsible for sharing information and making sure that you're safe, that when you buy a product, you should be provided with that information so that you can make informed decisions.
Do you think, given the Foreign Office advice at the time, which was not saying people shouldn't go to Tunisia at all, they were reminding them that there had been terror attacks and Westerners could potentially be targets of that, but do you think under those circumstances you should have been able to buy a package holiday to Sousse?
I can only say to you that if I had been provided with the terrorist information, the descriptors, at the time that I'd gone in to book, then I wouldn't have been booking a holiday to Tunisia. That's without doubt. I'm very certain on that.